All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. After quite a little break from the study of the Key to Redemption in Our Hands series, just a couple of days in which I was not online, we got to go back. And this is going to be class number 3 of episode 33, called Wake Up, Moshiach is Here. And this is again the 33rd episode in Key to Redemption in Our Hands. This is the Dvar Malchus of Parshas Toldos. It's the second Dvar Malchus of Parshas Toldos. We are holding chapter 4. Okay, so just to refresh, in this talk, we were talking about the significance of Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, and why Rosh Chodesh, which is the beginning of the new Hebrew month, first day of the Hebrew month that happens 12 times a year. This time it's a leap year. It happens 13 times in the year, in which you have the first day of the month. And that first day of the month is a special day. It's like a mini holiday. And we know it's connected to the days of Mashiach. The new moon is related to Messianic times. So, Herschel, I need you to get this call. Here. I started. My father is calling. I started the thing, but I need to. Can't miss this. Okay, sorry. It's just an important thing I've been waiting for. So the new moon is why? Because what's the new month? The new month is connected to a new moon, and the new moon means that the moon goes through stages of concealment, and then it gets revealed again, and that represents the newness of what? So we spoke. It's the newness of the Jewish people. The Jewish people have times in which we are very prominent and very present and very, very luminous in the world. The whole world recognizes the blessings that come from Israel. There are times when the Jewish people have been downtrodden and exiled and persecuted and stepped upon. And then the idea of the new moon represents the Jewish people emerging again as a light onto the nations. That light is going to be the most, in its strongest, most powerful way, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be as if Israel was just born to the world. In addition to the moon representing the birth of the Jewish people, it also represents, and we discussed it has two nuances, two pieces to it. Number one, the new people that will be when Mashiach comes, the same people, but with a whole new light, as if everything that the Jewish people represented in the past is all considered nothing in comparison to the new light that we will be shining upon humanity with the coming of Mashiach. Once our temple is rebuilt and our souls are being charged, it's one of the ways of looking at it. Our souls now are exhausted, they're tired, they've been emaciated, if you might say, starved for thousands of years. So we can understand that the light shining from the Jewish soul is not in its full potency. It's like the battery needs a charge. However, when the temple is going to be standing and we're going to be charging our souls directly from a divine power source, so the light that's going to emanate from Israel to the world is just going to be spectacular. And that's the new moon, the new light of Israel. But there's two things we learned. The new moon represents we will also appreciate then all that we as a people, not first of all the Jewish people, but also humanity as a whole, what it has contributed to the world. The sun represents God's input in the world, and that's why the sun is unchanging, because God doesn't change. He is permanent, unchanging, and is. But we are created to be in a constant state of fluctuation and change. And the new moon represents all of our innovation that we've brought to the world. It's that's why the moon is called, the new month, which is associated with the new moon, is called Chodesh. Chodesh means chidush, something new. The novel light, all that which has been contributed and brought to the creation as a result of Israel, as a result of our work, of humanity, and led by the Jewish people. But in addition to that, Chodesh also means, as we learned in the last class, your renewal, because the work that we do in the world is so important to God that when we achieve what we need to achieve, that causes the people themselves to be a new people. So that's the new moon, and that's why the new moon is so powerful. And in addition to it being the renewal of the Jewish people, the nucleus and the main power of Israel in the world is its messianic power, which is the kingdom of David, of David HaMelech, King David, who is also compared to the moon, and his kingship within the Jewish people itself had a prominence, had a presence in the world. It took 14 generations from the beginning of Judaism, beginning with Abraham, until King David came onto the scene. He's the 14th generation from Abraham, from our patriarchs. So it's the 14th generation within the Jewish people, just like the moon takes 14 generations for it to be in its full state. And then finally, then it went into decline. For how long? For thousands of years. First, it lasted. The kingdom itself lasted for another 14 generations. Although the kingdom was split, but there was still a remnant of the kingship. It just its influence was getting weaker and weaker. Its physical influence and its spiritual influence. During King Solomon's reign and King David's reign, it was at its peak, like the moon in the 14th and 15th day of the month, and then it started to decline. And when it got to the end of the month, it disappeared completely, but it disappeared for 2,000 years. And when we see the new moon, we get excited because we recognize that King David is coming back. Moshiach is coming. And Moshiach is a grandson of King David, the restoration of the Davidic kingdom. And that's why the significance of a new moon. Now we learned, however, as great as the new moon is, which gives us a lot of hope and it gives us a lot of excitement, now, we should never, ever fall into despair from our decline, whether it's personal, whether it's cosmic. We should never fall into despair because we know there is always, every decline leads to a new regeneration, a new birth. But, however, there's still a chisaron, a lacking on the first day of Rosh Chodesh. What's Rosh Chodesh? The first day of the month. Why? Because even though we get to see the moon, we only get to see a tiny sliver of the moon. And since you're getting to see a tiny sliver of the moon, it's only a minimal presentation of the light and the beauty and the emanation of the moon. If that's the case, we would think that it's better to wait for the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day. Don't try to eat the soup when it's too hot, because then you get yourself burnt. In other words, let's not grab it on the first day. Let's wait till it's the 15th day of the month or the 14th day of the month. You have a nice, beautiful full moon. That's when we'll light up the fireworks. That's when we'll celebrate. So it seems like once Mashiach will come to the world, he will come first as a little bit of light. Then his light will add more and more and more until the light will be a full-blown moon. And the same is with the Jewish people. Our light will begin as a little light, and then it will become more brighter and brighter and brighter until it will be a full illumination of spiritual godly light that Israel and the Jewish people will be shining upon the world. So why don't we wait till the 15th day? So we say like this, regarding every month that is correct. On the first day of the month, you only have a little tiny bit, a sliver of light. But in Kislev, that's what's unique about the month of Kislev, which is the month that we're in right now, is that in Kislev, the word Kislev stands for, we learned this earlier. I'm just going over these points so that we can catch on for the continuation. If you want an elaborate understanding of all of this, please listen to class number 1 and class number 2. Same title, but class number 1 and class number 2. So the idea of Kislev represents the word of the name of this third month of the winter months is called Kislev, which can be broken into two words in Hebrew, Kes Lamed Vav. What that means is, Kes means concealed, Lamed Vav is 36, and which, as we discussed in the earlier class, represents full-blown revelation. When something is revealed to its fullest extent, with all of its potential, then the number, its number is 36. It's related to the fact that everything is made up of six emotions, 6 directions, 6 is a wholesomeness of something, and being that everything, every aspect of existence is integrated of all the other parts. Because in holiness, everything is integrated. Everything is a composite of the whole. So in the north, you have the south of the north, the east of the north, of the 6 directions. And that's the idea, the up and the down, and so on and so forth. So in the 6 emotions, which make up the full gamut of the human experience, and in our case, of the light of the Jewish people, or the light of King David. So it would be all 6 features of his soul, or all 6 features of the Jewish soul. That 6 times 6 is 36. That's why the number 36 represents a full moon, a full-fledged revelation. And what we're saying is that on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, we don't have to wait until the 15th day, until you have the quality of the whole moon, because as soon as it's Rosh Chodesh Kislev, means that you're coming from concealment, to immediate, powerful, full range revelation. That's only in this month that you have so much energy already on the first day. The question, obviously, we will ask on that. Is, if so why isn't it that on Rosh Chodesh Kislev we don't have the full moon immediately? If you look up in the sky, tonight actually is the 15th day of the month. There will be a full moon. But until today, until last night, the moon was waxing, and it started off to be. And on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which was 2 weeks ago, you didn't have a full moon. You had only a little, the same like every month. So true, the name of it, the content of the name indicates that you're going from concealment to full-fledged revelation immediately. That's only in the name, but that's not in reality. So that needs to be understood. That's where we're picking up over here in chapter 4. So in chapter 4, he asks this question. What does he say? He says, in other words, after we've explained the symbolism in which the new moon represents, and why it's a festive day, and why it's important, we still have to ask, and that's why it's a day connected to Moshiach. It's a Messianic day, and it's supposed to trigger within us our Messianic fervor and our Mashiach inside of us, our new light, which is supposed to be triggered by the new moon. The question is, as we mentioned earlier, wouldn't it be more appropriate to wait till the moon continues to wax and reaches its fullest? Because then you can truly celebrate. Why jump the gun and celebrate on the first day? Now, especially in light of what we said earlier, when did King David, who represents the Davidic kingdom and a Moshiach, when did King David appear on the scene? We said earlier, King David is not the first one. King David is a lineage. And he is the 14th one after 14 generations. The name David, which is spelled in Hebrew, the word David, Dalid Vav Dalid, the numeric value is 14. And he was the 14th generation. His son Shlomo is the 15th generation. Actually, Solomon in Hebrew, Shlomo, if you take away the zeros and you just look at the letters without the zeros, single digits, Shin is 300, but let's eliminate the zeros, so then we will leave it with 3. A Lamed is 30. Let's eliminate the zeros and leave it with 3. Mem is 40. Let's eliminate the 0 and leave it with 4. So you have 3, 3, and 4. And Hey is 5. 3 and 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15. So take a look. Everything in Hebrew is so amazingly perfect. David is the numeric value of 14, because he's the 14th generation. Shlomo, the numeric value of his name, again, without the zeros, which is a concept that exists in Gematria. It's called mispar katan. It's reducing everything to the single digits. Shlomo is 15. I once was teaching. This was not my thought. The concept that David is 14 is already brought in books, but the concept that Shlomo is 15 was a cute thing. I was teaching a class, a high school. I teach a girls' high school, and I was teaching my students this concept, and one of the girls figured this out. She said, Shlomo is 15, and it really brought me lots of delight. a young girl. She was, I don't know, like must have been, maybe she was 15. But it was nice that she came up with this idea that Shlomo is numeric value, without the zeros, is 15. In any case, so we see that the Davidic kingdom in its glory only we celebrate it in the 14th and 15th generation. If that's the case, why, when it comes to Moshiach, do we celebrate it on the first day of the month? As we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, we are triggering within ourselves joy about the future redemption. We're saying the moon will come back. Hold your guns and wait till that Messianic light will grow and become more known, more revealed. His renown and his name will spread across the entire world. Like it says in chapter, it's in the 14th day of Tehillim. We said it today. It's in chapter, Psalms, chapter 72. Beautiful psalm, talking about the future of the Davidic kingdom, about King Solomon, and then it talks really about Mashiach. So it says over there, "V'yed miyam hayam," he will rule from sea to sea, or minor, from the river, ad afsei earth, to the four corners of the earth. So his name will fill the entire world. All the nations and all the kings will. It also says over there, "Kol malachim yavdu," all kings will come and serve him, will submit to him. Like today, we've seen the Argentinian future prime minister came to the Rebbe in Queens. He came to say thank you. He was just elected, and he felt that he has to come say thank you to the Lubavitcher Rebbe because he felt it was the Rebbe's blessing that led him to his victory. And this is what he himself feels as the primary reason. Check it out. Milei, future president of Argentina, Milei, traveled from Argentina. His first out of the country trip after his incredible victory that he had. He won some kind of a landslide victory. And where does he go? He decided to go visit the Rebbe. This is all Messianic. This is literally Messianic. He's a non-Jew, and yet he feels that that's where his power is coming from. That's where his blessing came. And from there, he's going on to Israel. Just spectacular. But in any case, so why don't we wait until Mashiach's light will be known across the entire world? Why celebrate at the birth? That's the Rebbe's question. And he extends the question and he says, especially in the month of Kislev, since Kislev, we're saying, means coming from concealment to full revelation, and we will not have full revelation even in Kislev regarding the physical moon. We do not see its full revelation until the 15th day or the 14th day. The reason I keep on saying 14 or 15 is because the moon is in its fullest 14 and a half days from its first birth. From the moment we spot it in the sky, it takes 14 and a half days until it's completely a full moon. So it's between the 14th and the 15th of having a full moon. In any case, why not? So then, especially in Kislev, that we are kind of already on the first day thinking, not satisfied with the little revelation. We're already expecting and excited about full-blown 36 revelation. If that's the case, wait till that will happen. Why celebrate already on Rosh Chodesh Kislev? So all of this teaches us, the Rebbe says, that Moshiach is not about the real novelty of Moshiach. The main gain, the main mind-blowing innovation that Mashiach will bring to the world in general and to the Jewish people as a whole and to each and every one of us in particular. That mind-blowing innovation and revelation is not a full moon, but the moment of birth. There is something powerful about the moment of birth that is far more potent and more pivotal regarding Mashiach and what Mashiach is accomplishing in this world, more than the quality of the extra revelation that continues. In other words, there's no doubt that the longer Mashiach is here, the more revelation there will be in the world, the more godly light will shine on the world, the better it will become, the more exciting it will become, the more enlightening it will become. But the real essence of Moshiach is the moment of the moon appearing from non-appearing. Now, although this is an important idea, if we're going to talk about the moon's emergence, the moon's birth, we can ask the obvious question. There is no new moon. The moon is always there. When we don't see it, it's just that it's positioned in the sky in a way that we can't see it. But why are we even talking about a new moon as if the moon is like some kind of an entity that just emerges? So the Rebbe explains that in one of the footnotes. And he says like this: if God gives you a job to fulfill, and you're not doing your job that you were given to fulfill, you might as well not exist. That's a powerful statement. We exist in as much as we are fulfilling our purpose. Anything else is plain superficial existence that has no truth to it. I'm not saying we don't exist. You go on the scale, you weigh a certain amount of pounds, and so on and so forth. But that's not called real existing. Really existing means to really be. To really be means you're in service of who is investing in you. God is investing in us. And when we are true to that investment, he's shaking his head and he's thinking, oh, that's a good investment. That we are actualizing what we were created. Then we are truly being, or else we're just a bunch of fluff. There's nothing really there to our existence. Now, the moon was created to be a luminary in the sky. The moon was meant to shine on the earth. Now, for technical reasons, God makes it that there's a certain time in the month where the moon is not shining on the earth. So if that's the case, the Rebbe says, therefore, it's as if the moon really doesn't exist during that time. Of course, scientifically, the moon is there. Of course, there is the moon substance is there. But for all real purposeful existence, the moon does not exist. When does it exist? When it starts doing its job on shining its light upon the earth. That's what God created it to do. And therefore we can say, at least theoretically, conceptually, we can say that when the moon is born every month, it literally is born. We're going from known moon to Yemu. And that's the main power of Mashiach, going from no divine presence in the world, going to yes divine presence in the world, going from our souls being blotted out and non-active in this world to our souls being present in this world, but not our light that we shine, but our essential presence. This is the phenomenal idea that the Rebbe is going to introduce over here. And he's going to say, to understand this, let's appreciate the value of a child. Let's appreciate the value of a person, of a little baby that was just born, over the value of this very same person when they are fully achieved and accomplished. When they are 97 years old, they are a great doctor, professor, and you walk into their office and they have every type of certificate and every type of accomplishment on their wall. You can see they won a prize from here, and they won recognition from here, from this organization, from this school, from this. They have a Nobel Prize. They have all kinds of recognitions. This is a person accomplished. They have all the pins and all the stars given to them. Their people are ranting and raving about all their accomplishments. And obviously, that's when you see the value, the contributions that this individual brought to the world. Well, the Rebbe says, that's all true. That's the light. That's the light of the moon. That's a full moon. In terms of a person, that would be your full moon. It's the day you can stand up and you're shining with all of your light. And we're doing an obituary, the day the person passes away. And we're looking at all the amazing accomplishments this person had. That's amazing. But there is something so much more powerful. The moment this person took their first breath in this world. Because then we came from no to yeah. This individual was not, and now they are. And the coming from the no to the yeah is much greater than the yeah being more yeah, more something, greater in its somethingness. It's just an expansion. Coming from the not to the yeah is so much greater. But why? But why? It's not only because it's a bigger leap, it's a quantum leap. From 0 to 1 is the largest leap. From non-existence to existence is a bigger leap than expanding someone's existence already, right? It's a greater leap because from 1 to 2 is finite, 2 to 3 is also finite, and 3 to 4 is finite. And so it's gradual growth, and it can't compare to the coming from non-being to being, which is really an infinite leap. But there's even more to it. And what is it? And that is that when the existence emerges from non-existence, that's when you're encountering the essence of it. The moment it begins to develop itself and starts to reveal its features and its qualities, then you're not seeing its essence anymore. We're getting distracted by its qualities. And so what does that mean? There is something really, really powerful about the moment you meet a person. At that moment, you know nothing about them. You know, someone rings the doorbell, you open up. Maybe this might be the person that's going to end. And you might end up marrying this person. You might end up, partnering up with this individual and merging your life. But for the first time, they came to your door. They rang the bell. You opened up the door. You see them there for a split second. You might even want to shut the door in their face. But it's that first moment of an encounter. You know nothing about them. Nothing. It's just that first. What's that? Here is where you're seeing them as the entire person. Although you're not processing any of it, but it's the person. After that, once you get into conversation, then you're already forming opinions about them. And then you're already creating a certain image in your mind, how you understand this individual. Now, when we get to know somebody, do we really get to know them for who they really are? First of all, we always have a slant. However we're looking at people, we have our own subjective ideas. So we create within our own minds preconceptions, and we see everybody and everything already from the slant in which we are looking. So that's also already not true. 10 people looking at one person, analyze them, one people come to a different conclusion of who that person is, because we already pre-programmed based on our education and based on our experience in our lives, so that when we see things, someone can see it yellow, the other person sees it a little green, and the other one sees it a little bit from a reddish tinge. I'm using colors for this idea, but you understand that ourselves, we're never really seeing something for what it truly, truly, truly is. Another thing is that the individual that we are coming to know, that is revealing themselves to us via their conversations, via their accomplishments, via whatever it is that they're going to show us about who they are, they might be hiding, they might not be revealing themselves to their fullest. First of all, the person can be a deceptive person. That's number one. A lot of times people show themselves as being something, but they're not truly who they really are. But even if they're trying to convey and express themselves who they really are, we're limited even as people in being able to express our truest depth to others, because we can't even express our truest depth to ourselves, let alone to others. Who am I really at my core? I don't even know. So the moment the child is born, the moment you meet the person for the first time and you're just seeing them, then it's just the very person itself. I don't know anything about it, but I know you. It's you. You is already the whole thing. This is the idea the Rebbe is developing, but he doesn't start talking about humans, and I use this as a human example of connection. The Rebbe starts with God, and the difference between a child's relationship with God and a adult's relationship with God. There's a big difference between children's perception of God and adults. But to understand this, we obviously would say that little children that grow up in homes where God is spoken of, and in religious homes, or even not religious, but at least God is a subject, God is something that is mentioned, So a child has an idea, has a little, is innocent in his or her innocence, claims, oh, God is in heaven, or God is looking, or whatever, says a prayer. A little child, let's say the younger the better. We would think it's a very, very, very amateur and a very childish understanding of God. An adult who studies, especially a theologian, someone who studied the works of whether philosophy, whether all kinds of other religious texts, based on that, has an appreciation of the godly and the divine. Has a far more sophisticated appreciation of God. So that's far more advanced. So you would think that the adult is so much closer to God than the child, who has but a tiny little vague nothing of what, has no clue what he or she is really talking about, can't really tell you anything much about God. So much so that they might even have a physical image in their mind as God being a being with a long beard, with, I don't know what kind of hat he is wearing. He's in heaven. However, the child imagines God. When we get older, we recognize that God can't be a physical being, and so on and so forth. So, in that case, we would lend our credence to an adult's understanding, especially if it's a clergy, especially if it's a Kabbalist and a mystic who can go on and on and on and talk about the mystical spiritual worlds and the godly realms and the sphirot and the attributes and so on and so forth. Oh, that is something impressive. What does a child know? However, the Kabbalists tell us an amazing thing. There was once a very big Kabbalist. Whenever he would pray, he would make an introduction to his prayer. And he would say, I am praying with the mindset of a little child. I am substituting my sophisticated mind. This was a Kabbalist who knew the secrets of all the supernal worlds. He was greatly knowledgeable of what goes on in heaven. And he knew the secret of the divine attributes and the way God conducts his energy flow and so on and so on. Knew so much about God. He wrote books and books and books about the supernal realm. And yet, he said, when I'm praying, I appreciate something. I appreciate that my mind is getting caught up in definitions. And God cannot be captured in the definitions of my mind. No matter how sophisticated they are, no matter how many qualities I can ascribe to God based on my vast knowledge, that itself is a trap for me. And therefore, I'm putting all that aside. I want to approach God like the simplicity of a 2-year-old. And when I'm saying God, I'm praying like a little child. Because when a little child is mentioning God and saying, blessed are you, God, because the child doesn't have sophistication. So who is this child addressing, he or she? What's the intention of the child when the child says God? So the Rebbe says over here, the child means God because it doesn't know anything about God. So it is God to the full entirety of God because there's nothing limiting there because there's no constriction. There's no definition. So the adult, the great rabbi and mystic would say, I prefer in my prayer to speak to God himself than to speak to all my imaginations of what God is. And even if it's not just imaginations, even if they're based on powerful truths, but I understand that these are only prisms of how God is emanating to me, but that's not who he truly is. He's beyond that. I prefer the mode, the simplistic approach of a little child. I don't know anything, but I know I'm talking to God. So here you have an adult and you have a child. And you have an adult who is attempting to be a child because he understands and appreciates the value of the child's connection. Comes the Rebbe. And this is the genius of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe says, but hold it. Who is connecting more to God's essence? The child, the little 2-year-old who learned a song about God and is singing about God with pure innocence, or the adult rabbi, Kabbalist, mystic who is setting it all aside and saying, I'm going to be a child and I'm going to speak to God like a little child. With simplicity, I don't know, God, you are. Who is connecting to God's essence to a greater degree? The child or the adult? The adult when they want to be a child. So the Rebbe says like this, the adult who wants to be a child is still caught up in some image. He is caught up in the pursuit of abstraction. He recognizes that whatever he knows about God's conduct and God's emanations cannot be what God is, because God has to be beyond that. God can't be defined by any definitions. And so therefore he continues to explore, and when he has an appreciation of the divine being, of the supreme being, he recognizes and says like this, for example, he says that, can I say about God that God is super intelligence? No, obviously, if all intelligence comes from God, God has to be super intelligent. But then he realizes if he says that God is super intelligent, then he's giving God a description. So what he really has to say is as follows: I can't say God is intelligent, but I can't either say that he's not intelligent. He can't be lacking the quality of intelligence. I have to remove the positive identification of intelligence from God, and I have to say that I understand that he cannot be who he is. I don't know, but I know that he can't be in any way lacking intelligence. So in that process, it's a process of elimination. It's a process of abstraction. And so he goes higher and higher and higher and keeps on eliminating and abstracting and abstracting. But even in the highest levels of abstraction, and he reaches a point where he says, the ultimate wisdom, it's like it says in various different books of Jewish philosophy, is the ultimate knowledge of God is to know that I don't know him. So when this individual reaches the highest peaks of understanding that I know that I don't know him and he's beyond, in that sense, when the child says God, he means God. Which God? He has no idea. He doesn't even know wow. So when the child is saying God, it's God. God for the full infinite percent of God. The child's simplicity of God, because he doesn't even have the wow. He or she doesn't even have the abstraction. So when the child is speaking of God, it's God to the fullest. If you want to know where is it captured, the fullest of God, in a childish connection. The adult philosopher, thinker, abstractor is chasing the child, but will never reach it. Because in the adult's mind, there will always be a wow to it. It's not with the simplicity of the child. So the child is just God is a fact. It is. Don't know. Even if he has an image in his mind of an old man, since the child is not looking to speak about God's qualities, he's not looking to be impressed about God. So he or she is relating to just the fact that God is. So God's very essence doesn't preclude anything. It's not any closer to the spiritual than the physical. So when the child thinks of a person with a long beard, or whatever image the child is having from God, whatever God would look like, that itself is not a problem. For an adult to think of God as a physical image is a problem, because when we're thinking about God, we're thinking already about a being with qualities. We're thinking already about descriptions. Once you're thinking about descriptions, you have to remove from God every kind of a description. But the child is touching God's essence. And in God's essence, he is. He is everything and he is nothing. He is the physical and he's the spiritual. He is all that is. He is the is of everything. And even the fact, the Rebbe says, amazing, even the fact that we prescribe to him when we're trying to talk about his essence and say, I can't say anything about it, just that he is, that too is already a description. Saying that he is, it's just that I cannot say that he's not is. So I use the word as a term that Hasidic terms, when it speaks about the very essence of God, it says atzmus u'mahus, which means the substance and the essence. The substance and the essence. But that's the Rebbe says because we don't have a better term, so we have to use something, so we speak about that. But the truth is, it's even beyond that. And the child is the closest to it because the child's simplicity connects him or her to the absolute truth of God's existence. Once you get older and you're exploring, you're getting already caught up in externalities. You're getting caught up already in understanding. That's what happens. The mind wants to define. And even when it's dealing with a reality that is beyond definition, it's using definition itself to work its way through the beyond definition. So it's always stuck. So again, the intelligence over here ends up being in a certain way an interference. If we can truly get ourselves to the pure innocence of the child inside of us, not an adult with adult sophistication being a child, but really, really, really discover the child in us and speak to God from that place, that might be close to the purity, because to the that's as far as close as we can get to the ultimate truth. Now, just like it is in terms of to who are you connecting to, the child's connection in their innocence. You know, when I have a little child before they go to sleep and they say, "Hear, O Israel, God is one," and their mommy says it with them in their bed, a 3-year-old little girl. There is no greater connection to God Almighty Himself than those pure words said by that little child. Because as we're saying now, because the child is not, and the Rebbe says it actually in Yiddish. In Yiddish, there's an expression when we speak about God, we call God either Hashem, which translate as the name, or in Yiddish you say der Abishther. The Abishther means the one above. That's a term that Jews, Ashkenazic Jews, whenever they speak about God, they speak in Yiddish, they say der Abishther, which means the one above. So the Rebbe says that when a kid says Abishther, he doesn't mean, he or she is not getting excited about the fact that God is the one above. He's not seeing it as a quality. Because again, to the simple child, it just is not the who and the ha and the wow. It just is. It's just the simplicity of it. So why then is he describing God? You say simply because that's the way little children are taught. They call God Abishther, which means the one above. So the Rebbe says the meaning by the child, the one above, is not that he is above everything, as we said earlier, that there's a quality to the fact, but that God is to be found above. Now, even though God is to be found everywhere, this is so beautiful how the Rebbe dissects all these details. He says, when the child is saying Abishther, what he means is God is found above, and that doesn't negate that he's not here. It's just that down here, the child recognizes that she is here, her brother is here, her mother is here, the house is here, right? Her little teddy bear is here, her little puppy is here. So down here, there's more than just God. But in heaven, meaning up there, they know there is only God. Like I was with my granddaughter the other day. She's exactly this age, like at the purest you can be, like 3 years old, 4 years old. So I went to visit them. My children live in Pennsylvania, and I took my granddaughter and her little brother out to the park. And as we were driving there, she's busy telling me, because the street was like a hill. So she's been telling me that I don't like going uphill. I only like, no. I tell her I'm going to take you to the park. I'm going to go on the swings. She says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go on the swings, and I want to go up, and I want to go up to Hashem, which is I want to go all the way up to God, and then I want to go up to Hashem. I want to go even higher than Hashem. I want to go even higher than God." And the children are so simplistic, you know, in their understanding. It's not understanding; it's the simplicity. God, it is okay. So now, the difference the Rebbe points out between to what element of God is one connecting to also changes the level of from where inside of you are you connecting. Which means like this: when two beings bond together, In our case, our bond with God through our worshiping of Him, through our knowledge of Him, we bond with God. And over here, we spoke about the difference between a child who, in their simplicity, when they say Hashem or when they say God, they mean God Himself. We get caught up already in the projections and in the lights of God and the qualities of God. So we're, in a sense, missing the point. Not we're missing the point. We're doing the best we can, but we're not touching God's essence. At the same time, in the same way a child is, in the same time, our connection is not emanating from our essence. We are projecting in other words, the dimension of self that is connecting to God is also external and not our very essence. Let me try to explain what that means. These are very deep and difficult concepts to convey, because the whole idea of what we're talking about is what is not describable in the realms of descriptions. That's why this makes it super challenging and difficult to give this class. What is he saying? He's saying because the adult is struggling and wants and is seeking to connect, and he or she is seeking to connect to a supreme being, so that when you begin your exploration of theology, when you decide you're gonna pursue and get to know God better, which every human being should do, so you start off exploring with your mind. You want to get to understand. That's the way humans are. We're curious. We want to know. So we study Torah, or we hear, or we read, or we examine ourselves, or we meditate, and we're trying to figure out the ways of God. And through God, the ways of God, like Abraham, we try to get to know Him. So in the beginning, we use our mind, and we try to make God make sense. At a certain point, we give up because we realize that God doesn't make any sense. So then we start recognizing that in order to connect to God, I have to let go of my mind, because my mind will keep playing games with me. So I need to because God is bigger than my mind, I need to transcend my mind. And to whatever degree we're able to do that, we're connecting higher and deeper. And in a sense, we're going deeper in ourselves, because we're reaching for God not from our mind, we're reaching from our God, from our faith, from a deeper place inside of us. We can open up within ourselves a deep desire to connect to God that is super rational. That means that we're connecting not from our head, not from our limited minds. We're connected from our very life force, which is our desire. It's when we're experiencing a desire to be connected. We can even go deeper than desire. We can get into pleasure, that God becomes our pleasure. And anything in our lives, all pleasure in the world become meaningless in comparison to the pleasure that we have in the fact that we have a bond with God. So again, we're going deeper. But then there is a certain point when we realize that in order to connect to God's truth, we study about this a lot, where God's truth is that He is and there's none but Him. So then we recognize that as long as I'm holding on to my existence, that itself is keeping me trapped in a trap, in a definition in which I cannot truly be one with God. To be one with God, I have to relinquish my existence completely. So first I relinquish my mind. Then I recognize that my mind is not enough. That even my pleasure and my desire and all these things are all still definitions. So even if I'm desiring a relationship with Him very much, or I am in pleasure, in delight of a relationship, but I'm still in self. And I have to go past that. So I need to melt even that away and reach a complete state of non. And in Hasidic terminology, this is called Mesiras Nefesh. I have to be willing to give my entire life up for God. Whether it means in the physical sense, like people who gave like Isaac, who was taken up to the binding, who was willing to give his life up. Or at least in a meditative way, I'm giving myself away completely to you, God, to the point of non-existence. I am not, and I want to be, because I know as long as I'm holding on to me, I can't perceive your truth. I can't be one with you. Fascinating stuff, right? So we reach a very high level. But the Rebbe says, even when you reach that highest, deepest point, and you're relinquishing and getting out of yourself, over here, you would say, okay, so what's that? At that moment, I'm really, really tapping my deepest essence. My essence from the core of who I am, at the core is deepest place. I'm connecting not only my intelligence, not only my desire, not only my pleasure, my very identity is connecting. But the Rebbe says the fact that the way you're connecting your identity is by nullifying your identity, by trying to get out of self. So that means it's not the substance of your very, very, very nucleus of your of your true being. The true essence of the soul is one with God. Doesn't need to melt or dissolve or nullify itself or surrender itself. In other words, we're still stuck somewhat in experience. Even the experience of melting is still an experience. Even the experience of abnegation, it's still an experience. The child, however, is not escaping existence. The child is not nullifying, is not connecting to God with pleasure, with delight, with intellect. For the child, for the little child that says God and makes a little blessing for God, says the prayer before they go to sleep, to them, God is just real. God is. They don't know anything about that real. It doesn't make a difference. It just is. Their essence is attached. It's from essence of the soul to the very substance of God. That's the purest, deepest oneness. Its problem is that when we grow older, we go away from that place. We're already getting out. We're already moving into experience. And experience is already a concealment on essence. Or to put it this way, since our souls, particularly the Jewish soul, is literally a piece of God from above, so the essence of the soul is one with the essence of the God beyond every experience. But the moment you start philosophizing it, the moment you start seeking to experience it, you're already outside of the essence. You're in experience. And then when you're connecting from a place of experience, you're connecting to the experience of God, not to the essence of God. Only the very essence cleaves to the essence. And that's beyond experience. And that's the essence of the soul. So, the highest level of experience that we spoke about before, the point that someone is willing to relinquish themselves completely for God, surrender themselves completely. I want to melt out because I realize I understand my limitation. I want to just be you, God. That's the level of soul, very high level of soul. We should all live in that space. It's incredible space. That level of soul is called Yechida. There are 5 levels to the soul, 5 names to the soul, which, as we discussed them many times, represent 5 layers of the soul. Nefesh is our ability to our holy, godly soul, which can fulfill divine actions in this world. Then there is Ruach, a higher level of soul in which we bond emotionally with God. We love God, we fear God. We have a level of Neshama in which we intellectually appreciate God from our intellect. We have a level called Chai, which is a higher level of soul. When we open ourselves up to that consciousness, we experience drive and longing and limitless drive and limitless longing in our desire to cleave to God, super rational desire. And when we hit the level of Yechida, which is the deepest level of the soul, we just don't want to be. We just want to melt. Yechida means the soul is one track minded. Yechida means unified in the unity. It wants one thing to be unified. So it dissolves to the unity. But the Rebbe says, even this is, by the way, what I'm teaching now over here is pure Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's nobody in the world ever before the Rebbe that spoke this language. This is Moshiach talk. This is like beyond anything. The Rebbe says, because Hasidus generally speaks only to this level, to Yechida. Yechida is the point where you're willing to give it all up. You're surrendering yourself. But if you're surrendering, that's already an expression. So it's not your soul. It's an expression of your soul. It's already a desire of the soul. It's already outside of your essence. Yechida. What's deeper than Yechida? And therefore, Yechida is only called the name of the soul. The Midrash says the soul has 5 names. A name is already a description. But then there's something deeper than even a name. Then there is the one who's named with the name. So the soul itself, what is it? Beyond any description, this is the soul itself. What is it? It's one with God. The soul is God. On that level, the soul is just one with Hashem himself. Without any experience, any desire, any want. Now, let me put it this way. The best expression the Rebbe can find for that is a little child's relationship with God. It just is. When he speaks about God, it's God's very self, and the place from where it's coming from is just the pure self, not anything outside of self. It's not mixed with anything else. Based on this, the Rebbe says, let's translate that into us. Okay, we're not the little children now. If we're listening to this class, we're a little older probably. And on that level, how do we connect this? How do we establish a connection to God from our very essence? The Rebbe finds it. And he says like this. We know when we wake up in the morning, there is a tradition that we say, Modani lefanecha. It's the first thing we're supposed to utter from our mouth the moment we wake up, and we kind of, come into wakeful consciousness, and we come into some bit of awareness. The first thing that we're supposed to do, Jewish tradition, supposed to sit up on our bed and say, Moda ani lefanecha, I acknowledge before you, God, Melech V'Kayam, the Master, the all-eternal King, Shachzarta bi nishmasi, you restored to me my soul, B'chemla Rabba, with B'chemla, with compassion, with mercy, Rabba Munasecha, great is your trust. Meaning, God, I trusted you last night. I allowed myself to fall asleep, which sleep is a little bit, I'm relinquishing my control over my soul. I'm letting my soul slip away from my body. Because the sages say that sleep is a 60th of death. So I'm allowing my soul, like sadly we find that people go to sleep and they don't wake up in the morning. So when we go to sleep, the reason we can even fall asleep is because we have a certain trust in God, and we're let go, and we let our souls go. But we know that we say to God, I can trust you, you gave me back your soul. So we're thanking God for our life. That's basically the first thing we're supposed to do in the morning. First word should come out of our mouth. Not what time is it? Can I have a coffee? What's on the news? I'm hungry, I'm tired. No, nothing. I didn't get enough sleep. The first words that come out of our mouth every day should be, I acknowledge Modani lefanech. So it is explained in Hasidic teachings that that Modani, in a sense, is the highest prayer. Why is it the highest prayer? Because it's your prayer that you're saying when you're still in a childlike consciousness. You realize when you wake up in the morning, you haven't had time to sit down, read a little bit of a book, read some Torah, let your consciousness settle in. Sit outside next, get yourself a cup of coffee or a tea or something, and sit and gaze outside and look at the birds chirping on the trees and start a little bit of an acknowledgement and say, oh, who am I in this world? God created me for what purpose? And think about God. That's what you're supposed to do when you pray. You're supposed to think about God. But that's later in the day when your mind starts kind of like opening up. First thing in the morning, your mind is still not open. The mind is not yet developed. You hardly know anything. You're just aware that you're awake. And already you're saying thank you. So in Hasidism, it says that the part of you that's talking when you say Modani is not your sophistication. It's not your mind that's talking. It's not your emotions. Your emotions aren't kicking yet. Your intellect isn't working yet. It's not even your desire. You don't even have a desire for anything yet. You just woke up. What is it? It's the very you. That's why you say Moda Ani, I, the very I. I'm admitting Lifanecha in front of you. And I don't know anything about it. I just know you. It's in a sense, the most childlike moment. You're a little child. You're admitting to God. Then later, we begin a progress of a sophisticated connection to God. We begin plugging in on all the various different levels, which we're supposed to do. But there's something very, very pure about the Modani of the morning. It's the purest. That is the way we've understood the Modani. This itself is a major Hasidic accomplishment. That's the reason why it says, interestingly, that we know that generally you're not allowed to make a blessing when your hands are impure. That's why we're supposed to wash our hands before we pray. It's very important that when we say a blessing, we say God's name, you're supposed to be in a state of purity. There's one prayer, the Modani, especially in the morning when we wake up, we know that our hands are impure. You're supposed to wash your hands according to the right way of doing it is to put a pail of water next to your bed on the floor. And you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, it's a Jewish custom, especially by Hasidim, it's very, very emphasized, to wash our hands by the bed. And then you pour out that water because it's contaminated water. I'm not going to get into it, but here's the thing. The Modani you're supposed to say even before you wash your hands. The question is, how can you say it? You're in a contaminated state? So there's an amazing teaching where the Rebbe says, in the name of his father-in-law, the previous Lubavitcher, that the Modani is coming from your very essence, your very soul. A place inside of us that is never contaminated. Our mind can become polluted. Our emotions can become misguided. Everything in our lives can become tainted, darkened. But the essence is always the essence. So since the Modani, because you haven't yet developed, who's talking? The part of you that doesn't receive any impurities, the part that always remains intact. So you can say, well, you're saying, my very I. So you can say it even with contaminated hands. This is a teaching we've studied in Hasidic teaching for the last 200-300 years. It too is innovative. In this talk, the Rebbe takes it much deeper. And the Rebbe opens up a whole new level that we've never known before. The Rebbe says, hold it. Modani is coming from the 5th level of your soul. It's coming from the part of your soul that is identityless and wants to surrender to God completely. And therefore, the moment of Modani is the deepest surrender. It's higher than everything else you're going to say. But you're already saying something. If you're saying something, it's already experience. It's not your essence. It's your essence expressing itself, but it's expression, it's not essence. What's essence, the Rebbe says? This is so good. The Rebbe says, what's essence? Essence is the moment you open your eyes. It's the moment of wakefulness. It's the moment your soul is emerging from non-being to being, in as much as today is concerned. Before that, it's as if you're not existing. And now you exist. Now you're here. Who's here? You, your entire being. You haven't even said anything yet. At that moment, you're connected to God deeper than anything you're going to say and express, because that's already expression. That's the moment of birth. That's the moment of the little child. That's when you have your essence to essence. That's the highest moment. It's deeper than everything. From there will come a build-up of expression, and later you'll draw it down into your understanding and so on and so forth. So this needs further clarification. I just don't want to, we've been talking already for an hour, and I want to so the Rebbe says, basically he says, this is the meaning of the coming of Mashiach. The coming of Mashiach is the essence of God revealing itself. and the essence of the Jewish people revealing themselves. And Moshiach, he is the essence of Israel. And that soul emerges. It's higher than every expression, than anything we can ever say. And that's why the moon coming from non-being to being, that first sliver of light, it's true. It's going to get brighter later. It's going to get more light. There's going to be more enlightenment. There's going to be more explanation. That's all going to happen later. But what's captured in the first second of the moon and kind of gets lost once the moon starts becoming more beautiful and more luminous is what's captured on the first second is, oh, there is a moon. Oh, God is. Oh, Moshiach is here. Oh, my godly soul is here. That's it. That's the deepest. That's the highest. Moshiach will put us in touch with that level of self and with that level of divine connection, connected to our very essence. But the beauty of Mashiach is that even when we are going to get into the more sophisticated explanations that Mashiach will teach about God and about the nature of the world and about the nature of existence, we will not lose the essence. The essence will be present in all levels of revelation, but this concept is something that we'll need to continue in our next class of this. Moshiach is essence, but the essence itself coming into full manifestation and full realization, and the usual way, or the normal way the way things work is that the moment you get into light, you lose essence. The moment you emerge out into the various different details, the details cover on the essence. But the beauty of Mashiach is that it doesn't happen. Mashiach carries the essence through into every aspect of existence. That even if you get into the nitty-gritty, into the most detail of detail, you can still sense the essence. This Be'ezrat Hashem. And that's why Mashiach is a Rosh Chodesh phenomenon. It's the birth, it's the essence of the moon, the essence of the light, the essence, the beginning of it, the moment of wakefulness. That is the root of it all. We shall continue Be'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.